Golden Age Hollywood was dazzling on the surface, but beneath the glamour, many stars lived in fear. At a time when being gay could end a career overnight, some of the most iconic actors were forced to hide who they truly were. Today, we reveal the hidden truths they carried to the grave and spotlight the most legendary stars who were secretly gay. 1. William Haynes. William "Billy" Haynes was Hollywood's quick-witted heartthrob of the 1920s. Imagine Ryan Reynolds with sharper suits and even sharper comebacks. But off-screen, he made history for something far braver than comedy. While studios pushed actors into fake relationships, Billy refused. He lived openly with his partner, ex-sailor Jimmy Shields, in a bungalow nicknamed the Gay White House. When MGM mogul Louis B. Mayer demanded a cover-up marriage, Billy famously replied, "I'm already married," referring to Jimmy. That remark ended his film career. But Haynes didn't fade. He flourished. He became one of Hollywood's top interior designers, reinventing homes for stars like Joan Crawford and Ronald Reagan. In 1936, when homophobic thugs attacked their home, Billy and Jimmy fought them off with garden hoses and wit. Columnist Luella Parsons joked the attackers left wetter than Billy's martinis. Billy never returned to the screen, but at his funeral, Crawford held Jimmy's hand and whispered, "You two beat the system." 2. James Dean. James Dean burned across the screen and the sky like a meteor. Brilliant, reckless, and gone far too soon. But behind the legend lies one of Hollywood's most enduring mysteries: his sexuality. Before stardom, he was closely tied to radio director Rogers Brackett, a relationship rumored to blur the lines between mentorship and intimacy. Gossip columnist Joe Hyams claimed Dean once admitted, "Why should I care what people think? I'm not going to live forever." On set, he bonded with stuntman Bill Hickman and spent quiet hours in local theaters where male dancers rehearsed barefoot. Dean often joined, calling it research. Though publicly linked to actress Pier Angeli, insiders questioned the authenticity. One friend recalled Dean saying, "Maybe Pier loved Jimmy the Myth, not Jimmy the Mess." After his fatal crash at 24, a safety deposit box revealed poems signed with male initials and a photo of Dean kissing another man backstage. A friend? A lover? We'll never know. Dean defied labels, and maybe that was the point. 3. Ramon Navarro. Long before Dean or Hudson, Ramon Navarro captivated audiences during the silent era. With dark eyes and exotic allure, he was MGM's answer to Valentino, a Latin lover marketed to stir hearts without breaking taboos. Off-screen, Navarro was quiet, devout, and discreet. He dined with Lionel Barrymore, attended piano soirees hosted by Cole Porter, and avoided studio-arranged dates by claiming devotion to prayer. "My only mistress is the rosary," he once told a reporter, but friends knew better. Tallulah Bankhead famously quipped, "Rosaries don't stroll hand in hand along Santa Monica Pier at midnight, darling." Navarro's life ended in tragedy in 1968 when two hustlers, believing he kept riches hidden at home, beat him to death. The tabloids feasted, but history looks back with tenderness. His diaries are filled with gratitude for quiet nights, stolen kisses, and a career that gave him cover, if not full freedom. His chariot scenes thrilled millions, but it's the whispered moments beneath moonlight that endure in the shadows of Hollywood lore. 4. Tab Hunter. Tab Hunter looked like he walked off the pages of a 1950s high school yearbook. Sun-bleached hair, clean smile, and all-American charm. Warner Brothers marketed him as a dreamboat, then panicked when he was caught at a party full of male dancers. With gossip hounds circling, the studio staged a romance with Natalie Wood. Tab played along, even attending premieres on her arm. She later joked she should have gotten hazard pay. But behind the curtain, Tab was quietly falling for fellow rising star Anthony Perkins. They roller skated around studio lots, exchanged love letters, and dodged paparazzi by hopping out of opposite taxi doors. Decades later, in his memoir Tab Hunter Confidential, he revealed everything: panic attacks, passion, and even the horse named Harlow that never cared who I kissed. His coming out wasn't a scandal. It was a breath of fresh air. After half a century of silence, he finally rode off into the open. 5. Anthony Perkins. Anthony Perkins will forever be remembered as Norman Bates, nervous, repressed, and deadly. But real life wasn't much kinder. A bookish, soft-spoken man, Tony spent his downtime in cafes, sketching costume designs and practicing French verbs. His romance with Tab Hunter began at a beach party and bloomed in stolen moments, horseback rides, quiet dinners, coded affection. But Hollywood didn't allow such freedom. His agent warned him a single rumor could destroy his career. So Perkins played the game, posing with Audrey Hepburn, arriving at events with Victoria Principal. Even Hitchcock joined in, joking, "He's so dedicated, he never brings girls to set." In private, Perkins built a life with photographer Barry Berenson, raising 2 sons. But in journals released after his death in 1992, he admitted he never forgot Tab's surfer laugh. Like the Bates Motel, he lived surrounded by locked doors, both literal and emotional. 6. Rock Hudson. When Rock Hudson entered a room, the atmosphere shifted. At 6'4", with a dimpled chin and a voice like polished mahogany, he was the image of American masculinity. But Roy Fitzgerald, the man behind the name, lived in a world of carefully constructed illusions. Under the control of studio fixer Henry Wilson, he was coached in how to walk, talk, and love, at least publicly. When Confidential magazine threatened to expose him, Hudson's career was saved by a hasty, studio-arranged marriage to Phyllis Gates. Behind closed doors, his Malibu home transformed into a haven where the guest list changed after midnight and the real Rock emerged. Laughing in cutoffs, flirting freely. Elizabeth Taylor once said he could outflirt any leading lady. Their deep friendship allowed Rock to confide fears few could voice in 1950s America. In 1984, his AIDS diagnosis forced Hollywood to confront a truth it had long buried. Sympathy replaced scandal. In the margin of an old script, he once wrote, "I won't apologize for living the life that lets me breathe." For a man cast as a He-Man hero, the boldest role he ever played was simply being himself. 7. Rudolph Valentino. Rudolph Valentino's smoldering gaze sold everything from cologne to wigs, turning him into Hollywood's first sex symbol. Women swooned, but whispers followed him everywhere about coated handkerchiefs, secret speakeasy dates with playwright Paul Ivano, and late-night tangos with male partners hidden under Panama hats. His brief, publicity-fueled marriage ended in days, prompting tabloids to call him Hollywood's most eligible divorce. When he died suddenly in 1926, New York gridlocked in mourning. Among the flowers was a chain-shaped wreath with a card that read, "To the one who taught me new steps in the dark." Its author remains unknown. Whether he loved women, men, or simply the idea of romance, Valentino proved that some desires burn louder in silence. 8. Sal Mineo. Sal Mineo broke hearts as Plato in Rebel Without a Cause, delivering a performance so raw it felt too real, because it was. Off-screen, he harbored a deep crush on James Dean, once writing in his diary, "He looks at me and I forget my lines." Warner Brothers staged photo ops with Natalie Wood, and Sal played along, later joking, "Nate and I just talked about how handsome Jimmy was." As Hollywood's tastes shifted, Sal struggled to find roles, eventually turning to theater. In Fortune and Men's Eyes, he embraced a daring part as a gay inmate, winning critical praise but little studio interest. He poured himself into indie projects inspired by queer literature, often self-financed. In 1976, returning home from rehearsal, Sal was stabbed outside his West Hollywood apartment. Police ruled out a hate crime. It was a random mugging, but his death sealed his image as Hollywood's lost boy. Today, he's remembered not just for his roles, but for turning quiet truths into fearless art. 9. Paul Lynde. A neon-lit game show set, a tic-tac-toe grid, and at the center square, Paul Lynde, firing off one-liners so sly even the censors blushed. Audiences roared, never quite catching the lavender wink. Born in Ohio, Lynde clawed his way through smoky comedy clubs, flipping slurs into punchlines with razor-sharp wit. He became a fixture on Bewitched and Hollywood squares, calling gay bars church socials and downing 3 martinis before the first hymn. He adored golden retrievers, all of them named Harry. But behind the campy charm lay pain. In 1965, a lover's mysterious fall from a hotel balcony brought press scrutiny that pushed Lynde deeper into isolation. Still, he never lost his edge. Asked, "What does it mean when someone sees a flying saucer?" Lynde quipped, "It means he's been to one cocktail party too many." He made millions laugh, but yearned for a piece he only hinted at in jokes. When he died at 55, a friend said, "Paul kept the world smiling and hid the tears backstage." 10. Tallulah Bankhead. Tallulah Bankhead didn't enter rooms. she blew through them like a hurricane wrapped in chiffon. With a martini in one hand and a script in the other, her husky laugh bounced off every chandelier. She bragged about seducing both husbands and wives, once saying, "My father warned me about men and women. He never said anything about fences." At Algonquin luncheons, she claimed Joan Crawford stole her favorite mink. Crawford shot back that Tallulah stole her lady's maid. Her parties featured bathtub gin and a parrot trained to squawk, "Daddy is drunk." On stage in Antony and Cleopatra, she wore gold lame so sheer that critics questioned if she wore anything at all. Rumored lovers included Billie Holiday, Hattie McDaniel, and the secretary of Mary Pickford, whom she cheekily nicknamed Pick-a-Flower. Hosting The Big Show, she opened live radio with a bawdy Ethel Merman pun that sent sponsors scrambling. Even hospitalized, she quipped, "Don't breathe on me, darling, I'm dying." The closet was never built strong enough to hold a storm like Tallulah. 11. George Nader. George Nader belonged to Hollywood's 1950s galaxy of beefcake, square jaw, dazzling smile, and a surprisingly gentle presence. Universal positioned him as the next Rock Hudson, but both men shared more than screen appeal. They had the same agent, Henry Wilson, known for grooming closeted stars. When Confidential threatened to out Hudson, Wilson allegedly offered a rumor about Nader instead. Studios quietly iced George, pushing him into B-movies and obscure German sci-fi TV, where press scrutiny faded. Off-screen, he lived openly with his partner Mark Miller and their Doberman, Arno, hosting sangria-soaked brunches full of laughter and thinly veiled jabs at Hollywood hypocrisy. In 1978, he published Chrome, a pulp sci-fi novel featuring two gay lovers, considered the first of its kind to gain mainstream success. When asked if he feared backlash, he smiled. "I already lost one career to rumors. Why not start a new one with the truth?" Today, cult film fans hail him as a queer icon who rewrote his story on his own terms. 12. Greta Garbo. Greta Garbo once told reporters, "I want to be alone," but her diaries suggest she craved privacy, not solitude, with women like playwright Mercedes D'Acosta and actress Lillian Tashman. MGM sculpted her image into a mystique, elusive, untouchable, speaking in yes or no soundbites while whispers filled the silence. At a 1933 masquerade ball, Garbo arrived in men's tuxedo tails and danced only with Marlene Dietrich. Photographers lunged. Studio reps deflected them with feathered fans. Her letters to D'Acosta overflow with affection, nicknames like Greta Lion and Tiny, sealed with pressed violets. After retiring, Garbo wandered Manhattan in trench coats and berets, slipping into art house cinemas and rare bookstores. A student once spotted her and gasped, "You're Greta Garbo." She leaned in, whispered, "Shh, darling, let's not start a scene," then disappeared into the subway. She never came out publicly, but her androgynous allure shaped generations. In silence, Garbo became a symbol. Some legends speak loudest in whispers. 13. Tyrone Power. Tyrone Power lit up the screen with sword fights, smoldering glances, and roles that made him Hollywood's leading heartthrob. But off-screen, his heart may have been speaking a different truth. During World War II, Power served as a decorated Marine, forming close bonds with fellow soldiers. Letters home hinted at more than just camaraderie, filled with subtle longing and emotional depth. After the war, rumors swirled about his closeness with actor Cesar Romero. The two vacationed in Havana without female company, prompting tabloids to raise eyebrows and studios to scramble. 20th Century Fox orchestrated marriages, first to French actress Annabella, then to Deborah Minardos. But even Annabella once said Tyrone preferred long, late-night talks with his male friends. When Power died on set in 1958, a leather diary among his belongings held birthdays of beloved male companions and a pressed gardenia from Romero's home. Whether friendship or something more, Power's truest love story may have remained just outside the spotlight. 14. Marlene Dietrich. Marlene Dietrich didn't just bend gender norms. She wrapped them in silk and strutted through them in a tuxedo. In Morocco, 1930, she kissed a woman on the lips, tossed a flower to Gary Cooper, and dared audiences to look away. Off-screen, her lovers spanned the spectrum, sharing Paris hotel rooms with writer Mercedes D'Acosta, trading smoky love letters with French actor Jean Gabin, each sealed with her signature scent, Bandit. When asked about rumors of affairs with women, she exhaled through her cigarette and replied, "In America, sex is an obsession. In other parts of the world, it is a fact. During World War II, she sang to Allied troops in men's jackets, riling Nazis and lifting spirits. Hitler blacklisted her. Paris called her the most glamorous soldier. She spent her final years in solitude, but her legacy never dimmed. Every time a pop star puts on a tuxedo or a woman claims power without apology, it's Marlene's echo whispering, "Be yourself. Be magnificent." 15. Montgomery Clift. Montgomery Clift arrived in Hollywood like a gust of raw New York theater. Intense, delicate, and impossible to ignore. With haunted eyes and razor-cut cheekbones, he redefined screen vulnerability. Directors worshipped him, but studios bristled at his refusal to play the fame game. He dodged fan club luncheons, deflected questions about women, and spent weekends jamming to jazz with playwright Arthur Laurent and a carousel of quietly handsome companions. His closest confidant, Elizabeth Taylor, called him Bessie May during their late-night phone calls and cigarette-sharing soul talks. After a car crash in 1956 altered his face and his career, painkillers couldn't mask the deeper ache. Friends said the wreck didn't break him, the secrecy did. Yet his suffering translated into brilliance, with performances that bled emotion. After his death, a never-published essay surfaced. It read, "The saddest thing I know is loving quietly. The happiest too." Clift didn't just act. He exposed the truth of longing on film. 16. Sir John Gielgud. Sir John Gielgud could recite Hamlet with one hand tying a bow tie, but in 1953, a scandal nearly ended his career. Caught soliciting in a public restroom, he paid a fine and faced humiliation in the British press. Yet when A Day by the Sea opened shortly after, he was met with a thunderous standing ovation. Gielgud wept on stage, and the theater world made its choice: brilliance over scandal. He embraced the incident with dry wit, once quipping, "I never go to the gents. I might run into critics." He lived quietly with his partner, stage manager Martin Hensler, traveling Europe between productions, collecting antiques, and sending friends cheeky holiday cards featuring Shakespeare in Santa hats. Over time, the incident, once seen as disgrace, came to symbolize change. Playwright Alan Bennett later said Gielgud's arrest helped put the stamp of silliness on the law. Knighted and still celebrated into his 90s, Gielgud proved that even under public scrutiny, greatness doesn't dim, it adapts and endures. 17. Van Johnson. With freckles, a boyish smile, and all-American charm, Van Johnson was MGM's wholesome wartime dream. He sold war bonds by the truckload and starred in fan magazines as the perfect sweetheart. But behind the poster boy image, his private life told another story. After a 1943 car crash sidelined him, whispers began that his recovery was spent not with a nurse, but in the company of dancer Keenan Wynn, whose wife Eve Abbott was soon married off to Johnson in what many believe was a studio-arranged cover. Abbott later confirmed the match was orchestrated by MGM boss Louis B. Mayer to silence rumors. Behind the scenes, Johnson's dressing room poker nights were notably male-only affairs. Post-divorce, he relocated to Palm Springs, living with decorator Charles Boswell, whom he affectionately called his roommate of record and cook extraordinaire. Johnson never publicly came out, but on a 1970s talk show, he smiled and said, "Freckles hide a multitude of secrets." The audience laughed, never knowing how true that was. 18. Laurence Olivier. Sir Laurence Olivier was Shakespeare's thunderbolt, knighted, Oscar-winning, and magnetic on screen and stage. But behind the sonnets and spotlights, whispers lingered. His longtime friendship with comedian Danny Kaye sparked speculation, fueled by playful letters addressed "Beloved Danny" and laced with puns too cheeky for the Globe. Olivier moved fluidly between personas: Britain's most revered tragedian, Hollywood's romantic lead, and co-founder of the National Theatre. Behind the curtain, he frequented literary salons hosted by gay poet John Betjeman, where brandy replaced tea and discretion was the dress code. During World War II, his military film unit jokingly dubbed itself the Defense of the Realm and Other Boys Club. After his amicable divorce from Vivian Leigh, who spoke openly about her own same-sex crushes, rumors swirled. Asked to comment, Olivier deflected with wit. "True actors bear their souls on stage. Why should we strip anywhere else?" His memoir offered only this: "The stalls are always full of rumor." 19. Richard Chamberlain. Long before Bridgerton, it was Dr. Kildare who made stethoscopes sexy, and Richard Chamberlain was the reason. With sculpted features and a calm, commanding presence, he soared from 1960s TV stardom to epic romances like The Thornbirds. Tabloids took note of his leading ladies, but never the morning after headlines. Off-camera, Chamberlain found peace in Hawaii, where he lived quietly with partner Martin Rabbit. In a rare cinematic twist, the two played lovers in 1986's Alan Quatermain, a real-life romance hidden behind action flick bravado. Outed by The Advocate in 1989, Chamberlain at first denied the truth, but in his 2003 memoir Shattered Love, he wrote, "The closet is a suffocating coffin. I needed sunlight." When asked why he waited so long, he said, "Because acting is pretending. And I thought I had to pretend off stage too." Today, he paints, gardens, and occasionally acts. Proof that even heartthrobs deserve a third act filled with peace, truth, and love. 20. Danny Kaye. Elastic-faced and endlessly energetic, Danny Kaye tap-danced his way through 1940s musicals, dazzling audiences with rapid-fire gibberish songs and comedic finesse. But offstage, rumors swirled, most notably of a romantic bond with Sir Laurence Olivier, hinted at in Noel Coward's diaries, and Vivien Leigh's teasing jealousy. Kaye married songwriter Sylvia Fine and traveled the world as a UNICEF ambassador, with Olivier reportedly joining more than a few of those goodwill trips. Biographer Donald Spoto claimed Kaye even kept a London pied-à-terre furnished by Olivier's decorator. When asked about his private life, Kaye would flash a grin and say, "Like my Inchworm song, sweet, simple, and on repeat." Sylvia was said to accept the arrangement, believing that creativity thrived in untraditional love. Kaye's favorite prank? Crashing student orchestras and conducting flawlessly before vanishing. As for the whispers, he once shrugged, "A rumor is just a story that hasn't found its punchline." Danny never confirmed. He just kept dancing past the questions. 21. Farley Granger. Farley Granger waltzed into Alfred Hitchcock's Rope with charm, wit, and rumors already trailing behind him. Thrust into fame at 21, he found himself juggling red carpet starlets and quiet evenings with playwright Arthur Laurence, who seduced him with sharp banter and Broadway flair. In his autobiography, Granger wrote that he never cared for labels, only whether a kiss felt sincere. He famously dated Shelley Winters and Leonard Bernstein, sometimes in the same weekend, earning him the nickname Broadway's busiest commuter. Hitchcock once teased him for blushing during intense scenes with co-star John Dahl. Though studios tried to sculpt a macho image, Granger drifted toward theater, where audiences cared more about talent than conformity. In 1953, he met producer Robert Calhoun. Their partnership lasted nearly 50 years. Asked late in life about his bisexuality, Farley laughed, "Past? Darling, I'm still alive." Long before terms like fluid were trending, Granger simply lived it. With grace, honesty, and a wink. 22. Raymond Burr. Before Perry Mason made him a household name, Raymond Burr spun elaborate fictions, a brief marriage, a lost son, even a tragic widowhood. None of it true. No license, no birth certificate, just carefully constructed myths. In reality, Burr spent over 35 years with actor Robert Benavides, raising orchids and running a 4,000-acre vineyard in Sonoma. Under the label Raymond Burr Vineyards, their wines won awards, and visitors were often stunned when Benavides casually introduced himself as Ray's partner. The deception stemmed from fear. Burr was once fired by RKO after whispers about a Navy romance, so he built a life behind a shield of invented stories. But colleagues knew. Actress Barbara Hale remembered cast barbecues where Burr openly welcomed Benavides with quiet affection. When the Los Angeles Times finally named their relationship in his 1993 obituary, many simply nodded. What they didn't know? Burr had bred a rare orchid, secretly named Phalaenopsis roberta, a quiet bloom for the man he loved. 23. Patsy Kelly. Patsy Kelly, the Brooklyn-born firecracker of Hal Roach comedies, paired machine gun wisecracks with tap kicks sharp enough to rattle the scenery. Unlike her peers, she refused to play the lavender marriage game. In 1932, she told a reporter she lived with actress Wilma Cox because husbands snore. The papers buried the quote, but Patsy kept talking. Her vaudeville acts were laced with double entendres about falling for the same dame twice. Hollywood didn't reward her honesty. She was labeled box office poison, but she thrived in B pictures and later conquered Broadway, winning a Tony in 1971 for No No Nanette. She proudly walked arm in arm with her female partners down 42nd Street, tipping imaginary fedoras at catcalling sailors. When asked if she kept secrets, she fired back, "Honey, my only secret is my gravy recipe, and you ain't worth the roux." In her final act, she stole scenes in Disney's Freaky Friday, proving once more that in a town built on illusion, Patsy Kelly made truth sparkle louder than any spotlight. 24. Clifton Webb. Clifton Webb mastered elegant sarcasm long before it trended online. Whether dismissing guests in Laura or fussing over children in Cheaper by the Dozen, he exuded fastidious bachelor charm. He lived with his formidable mother, Maybelle, well into adulthood, prompting columnists to nickname him Hollywood's Prince Hamlet. His sexuality was an open secret. Noel Coward once begged him in a letter to join a getaway in the south of France. Webb declined, blaming rehearsal. When a publicist floated a fake romance, Webb quipped, "My dear, the only suitable match for me is society itself." He traded martinis and barbs with Cole Porter at the Beverly Hills Hotel, terrifying junior reporters with cutting grace. Offstage, he loved gardening and sent his nieces illustrated letters featuring cats in top hats. When he passed in 1966, Maybelle died just months later. As gossip columns sighed over Hollywood's most polished mystery, one could almost hear Webb's ghost whisper, "Secrets, like martinis, are best shaken, not spilled." 25. Cary Grant. Cary Grant had the grin of a Cheshire cat, one who'd read every secret and whispered half of them himself. Born Archie Leach, he shared a Santa Monica beach house with fellow actor Randolph Scott throughout the 1930s. The press dubbed it Bachelor Hall, running photos of the pair in matching aprons grilling steaks. Hedda Hopper needled Grant about marriage, and he shot back, "Who says I'm not married to Randolph?" The quote was quickly clarified as a business joke. To ease speculation, Paramount arranged high-profile romances, first Carole Lombard, later heiress Barbara Hutton, whom he eventually married. But even through 5 marriages, Grant's bond with Scott endured. One ex-wife joked his real competition was always that lanky cowboy in the guest room. Grant once quipped, "Everyone wants to be Cary Grant. Even I want to be Cary Grant." Behind that mask were letters to Scott referencing our cottage hideout and a shared cocktail recipe titled Two Bachelors in Love. The public speculated. Grant never corrected them. If you enjoyed this glimpse into Hollywood's golden age, don't forget to like, subscribe, and step into the next story. There's always more behind the curtain.